So I want to stand up and give everyone a round of applause. I mean this. Because we made it to 4 o'clock and it's about to snow, and I know a lot of people are wanting to get home to avoid that. And I said, stand up and give yourselves a round of applause. We want to get the energy up here, please. Okay? That's right. Fill in the seats. I want to be able to come and talk to you guys directly. Okay. Welcome. Let me see this here. My name's Elise. I'm from Dahlberg. This is Snika. And we're really excited to have you today. We know there's an IDEO workshop that went on that talks about human-centered design. We're going to talk to you a little bit about that too, but with a little bit of a nuance, because we're embedded at Dahlberg. Our group is called Design Impact Group, and first hire for that team to start scaling and thinking about human-centered design within this larger management consulting toolkit, which Stigda will also be able to speak to for us. And basically, I want to know who's in the room first. So who's a student? Raise your hand. Okay, that's a big portion of us. Who's from industry? Or, okay. And then nonprofit, governmental. Excellent, a wonderful mix. I want to ask you now, who has a social enterprise up and running right now? Nice, excellent, 2, 3, 4. Now who's been a part of a social enterprise before? Who has, interned or, volunteered? And we're all excited about this, right? So somehow we've been involved in this. Who's been a part of one that failed? Yeah. Who had one, okay, I'll phrase it this way. Who had a massive pivot? Social enterprise, anyone had a massive pivot? I'll raise my hand for that one. Really, really big one. Big pivot, underwent a massive pivot. Less so on that one, I'll be interested to hear that. And so I wanted to tell you that as a designer, human-centered designer, and just a personal philosophy, that the reason why those pivots fail or turn into failures is that there's not a sense of curiosity. And with Dahlberg's work, we focus in international development. Sometimes we're going and solving big, hairy problems in communities that are outside our own experience. And we're making assumptions. We have to move fast. We have a dwindling amount of resources and time and money for our social enterprise. And how do we balance the right amount of research and information? And what tools do we have to use to feed that curiosity and make sure we're going in the right direction? And so today what we really wanted to focus on is how we can get you some really specific concrete tools. We're going to move really quick, not talk too much about us, and get you guys working on some very concrete research methods that we like to use in the field to get some quick, rapid insights that can actually lead us to move things along faster and more meaningful. So I wanted to title this workshop How to Avoid Crap In, Crap Out. Because that's the really interesting part, is how do you know what information is important for the success of your social enterprise? And so basically, hopefully we can give you a few of those lenses that Dahlberg is deploying, and it's very exciting to be a part of this company because they have innovated so much on how they bring in different approaches. And so I, as a human-centered designer, coming into so many different mindsets, feel very lucky to provide another set of those tools. And hopefully you guys can get an example of how all of that integration comes together in our work. Before we get any further, how many people are engineers? Let's say that. Now, I want to know, what is your approach to problem solving as an engineer? You raised your hand. I'm going to pick on you.
Can you repeat your question? So
what is your problem solving approach? How would you describe as an engineer?
You look at lots of data, I guess. Collect lots of data around whatever that it is that you're analyzing, and pour through it, try to identify trends and patterns, and then look at hypotheses coming out of them.
Excellent. Okay, how about economists? Economists? Yeah. How's your problem-solving approach maybe differ, same?
We don't focus on the real world. We might.
Yeah, no, models are great. Models are great. It makes it simple and actionable. symbol.
Yeah,
Okay.
try to come up with a causal chain and then try to find incentives.
Yeah, excellent. Incentive models, got it. Economics. Okay, who else? What else is there? Let's say like maybe some kind of biologist or maybe social scientist. Social scientist? Biologist, tell me.
We collect data. We have a hypothesis. We collect data. We test the hypothesis.
Yep.
And then we reestablish the hypothesis.
Beautiful scientific approach. Love it. How about an anthropologist, social scientist, artist? Anthropologist.
Yeah.
How's that problem solving different?
It's pretty much like scientists, I guess. There's one data collection, observation.
Yep. Excellent. Observation, data collection. That's kind of where we're going to be sitting in the realm today. A lot of human-centered design starts with that human insight, going to people. And that's the one that is tricky for people to turn into action. It's not just the study, but now what do we do with it? That's where we're going to go. And what I would like to do is hand it over to Snigdha to talk about Dahlberg and how all of those thinking and approaches that you guys put together actually come together in a management consulting firm. Mine being one approach plugging into that, but then also other ones as well. Thank you, Elise.
All right, so I guess, how many of you already know about Dahlberg and what we do? All right, so I'm not going to talk more about Dahlberg. I'll just say in one line that we are a management consulting firm which is focused on development issues and solving development challenge. And taking a cue from what Elise just mentioned, curiosity. So we are a bunch of really curious people who have realized that a development challenge or different development challenge needs to be solved through different platforms. And that's why we have spun out many entities from overall Dahlberg platform. So we have a D Capital, which is the impact investing arm of Dahlberg. We have GDI, which is the incubator of Dahlberg. We have D Research, which, as you guys said, helps us collect data in this really data ambiguous sector that we work in, which is development. And then we have Design Impact Group, which very recently, last year, we integrated that into our overall platform. Before that, I'm Snigdha and I've been at Dahlberg for 3 years, and I have worked in 3 offices in my time at Dahlberg. So very global firm, we work across different geographies. So one question everyone kept asking me when I would meet people is, why are you trying to think about design in a strategy form? Like, design is for creative people, strategy is for logical people. That was the cliched questions I would get asked all the time. And my answer was that we also have a very cliche line at Dahlberg, which is we do everything for the benefit of a silent stakeholder. And the design gives voice to the silent stakeholders. You get into the nuances, you get into what motivates people, you get into what are their fears, what are they apprehensive about. And this is particularly helpful for 2 reasons, because development as a space is highly data ambiguous. Like, nobody has really good amount of data, so you can't do your normal analysis which you would in any consulting firm. And secondly, a lot of development solutions currently are designed in places which are very far removed from the actual development challenge. So not knowing the stakeholder enough have led to a lot of issues with actually implementing a program. So having said that, and that is where design comes in, and that's why we have this integrated into our overall strategy. It's not just about product. It's not just that we need to design a new product, so we will have someone from design team join us. It's also about process innovation. It's also about packaging things and branding things. I mean, let's face it, nobody reads reports. It's really boring. Only analysts at consulting firms read reports to make analysis. But designers can add a lot of value to that. It can make it really digestible. So there are many ways you can apply design thinking in a strategy firm, and that was the intention behind doing that. I know I've said a lot, and it's very difficult to digest when you don't have concrete examples. So both Elise and I will actually go through a couple of our cases very quickly and tell you how exactly we integrate a Dahlberg team. Sure. Right. Oh, it's a very stupid title, but yes, we were employed. We were employed by a Southeast Asian telecom company to design an MPOS, or a mobile point of sale solution, for their overall financial inclusion strategy. So we were given the mandate that nobody is using mobile money. We do not have enough market share, but we want to now get into the whole MPOS business as a way to increase people's awareness about what they can do with mobile money. Knowing this, knowing this, this was an environment where we didn't have any data. We were like, how are we going to figure this out? We all knew the cash stickiness problem in that country. We all knew that it existed, but we did not know why that existed. So you're like, fine, we are going to go down, look at segments which kind of represent our overall market which we're trying to look at, take those key scenarios and try and test our thinking. So we looked at 6 different kinds of scenarios, some of them not typical Dalberg sector, but we wanted to test our hypotheses. We spent a month in that country just spending time with these traditional retailers, understanding what were their motivations, understanding how they thought about where money came from, how the money needs to be used, and we derived such insights from them which were extremely qualitative but very nuanced. And what that research did, like we did some journey mapping with them. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of empathy too, which is going to sound very alien right now, but Elise will help you understand that in the next 10 minutes. But what we did here was we employed SCD tools like journey mapping, we did financial portfolio analysis, we did home tours, essentially being close to people and trying to understand their triggers, their connections, their motivations, and what was driving this cash stickiness and how could they adopt MPOS and what could have helped them adopt the MPOS. So,
Sorry.
don't worry about it.
Didn't practice.
You're doing a great job. Right, so these principles, I'm not going to go deep into the principles because, well, if you're interested in the case, grab me after this, I'll tell you more about it. But essentially, the principles helped us nuance our pilot. So the pilot was designed as any consulting firm would design it, based on your landscaping, based on profit analysis, based on regional differences, and all those normal things you'll take into account. But it was highly nuanced and tailored to what we had learned from the principles, which we wouldn't have if we hadn't done that whole exercise of understanding people's fears. Next slide. And then this is an example of, at the end, we had sensitivity analysis, and we did everything else what you would do in a consulting firm. So we added the SCD tool to enhance our overall strategy, not taking anything away from the actual rigorous strategy. One of my greatest insights of this project was that everyone was talking about that this country, a lot of cash stickiness. We can't do anything about it. We actually figured out what was driving that cash stickiness. Apparently, that country did not want the government to track its money. Most people answered that they did not want people to know how much money they had, and they didn't want any digital footprint of that. The second reason was that it was just too much hassle for absolutely nothing. They have money, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can associate with it. They do not need any kind of digital thing too. It's all new to them, it's all hassle to them. So yeah, that's what happened, and that was one example. I guess Elise.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk you through really quickly just how our project is structured, integrating these two approaches. I'm gonna have you click this well. Oh, so 4 parts, really quickly. There was a landscape study done by the consulting side saying all the social enterprises, all the big banks, everyone dealing with direct-to-farmer finance. What are they doing? And so there's right now a 450 billion gap of need for finance for smallholders in the world. That's crazy huge. And so the project was, what can we do to get that money to them? What do the farmers need, tailored to their lifestyles to take up new financial services and tools? And then also, what are the players, stakeholders involved in these services need to do to prepare for that? So there was taking all the examples in the world of what's happening today. I went with my team 4 days into the job. It's about a year now that we've been in operation. This was project number 1, going to farmers on 2 acres of land, walking their land, understanding what are their challenges, when do they feel most financially confident, when are they most strapped, what are they saving for. And then we brought together all of these stakeholders, the big banks, the technical assistance providers, the fertilizer producer, and said, well, what do you know? What do you know? What are you doing? Here's what we learned from the farmer. What do you want to do next? And so lessons and guidance brought us to some concrete new concepts and also an overarching strategy for why that's the fringe. Why is that taking us from where we are today over into something that's brand new that can actually deploy that financing? So this is a little bit about how we saw your traditional 2x2, about how business models are structured. And then we did, from there, we created, the next one's Nikki. A behavior model from the farmer side, and figuring out different types of farmers and motivations and how you can tailor solutions for them. So then those two together clicked over into the workshop where we generated ideas with all those stakeholders. And then the last one was we figured out concepts. Today's state of play for this innovation space about in-field efficiency as an example. And here's Opportunity International, what Acre Fund's doing. And then providing a next actual new solution that no one's done yet, but seems like a logical next step is figuring out how to have a maize mill in conjunction with banking on the road, something that they already had, and this is a service that was a big barrier for them to start having better income. So you saw how it went from one step to the next and built upon each other and integrated all these kinds of approaches together. So knowing that this is probably like the newer skill set, management consulting, we're at HPS, kind of know what those toolkits are. I want to give you guys more of an understanding about specifically that empathy toolkit.
Oh yeah, and before we go there, this is actually a public report in case you're
Oh, yeah.
interested.
Read it
You
all.
should
Tell me what you
actually
think.
read it.
So this is a little bit of behind the curtains, the types of methods and things we're doing with farmers, and the types of methods are varied. This is just 6 examples, but I wanted to give you just a quick sampling so that you can start thinking about how you can use them in your own field research, even if you have 4 hours in the field speaking to stakeholders or investors, you can go learn more about your topic and gain that empathy. So here's a few, and I know this has become more buzzwords, so I'm excited to take you one step further from, hey, let's prototype, and let's brainstorm, and like put stickies on the wall, to actually thinking about, okay, what's the right tool for what kind of insights I need to gather. Let's push a little bit further past there, because I want you guys to be able to apply this and actually build the empathy in the ways that you need. So let's go through them. I know we have varying levels of understanding for these kinds of methods. So intercepts. Think about where is the highest probability that you'll meet interesting people on your topic. So I'm going to Chile next week, 2 weeks, and going to the shores of the beaches to talk to fishermen. Awesome place to do research, but I've got to figure out when they're docking, when their fish are moving, and basically so I can just grab them on the beach. And so it's not the specific wonderful fisherman that someone wants to show me and prize, but I might actually get the one breaking the rules, the ones that are catching things that aren't supposed to be legal. I need to know what actually is happening, where it's hot, where's those hot spots of people you need to find. So that's an intercept. Might be 2 seconds you talk to someone, you might actually go for 2 hours. So in context interviews, this is going to a home in a village, and basically I just stopped him and said, what are those? And he's like, oh, I got a small side business charging phones. I wouldn't have known that unless I asked him, can I see your home? Can we go see what's going on? And not being afraid to ask, how much was your cow? Where'd you get it? Oh, you actually have a side small farm, like a small plot of land. What are you selling there? Oh, that's just for subsistence. And so it's a really interesting dynamic, so you can ask about their actual context. Group interviews is a way that you can understand the social dynamics and play off of each other. And if you can get a prompt into the hands of people, and then they can call each other's bullshit, essentially. Like, no, you don't actually behave that way, and then you can just listen, right? So you understand that. So if I go to this top one, it gets a little bit more interactive, less about the interview and the talking and the types of structures that you go. Participatory design is maybe you already know you have a general solution set, it might be mobile, something like that, and then you want to start moving around features or services. So you might have movable parts or ways that you can prototype with your user on site. And then we already talked a little bit about the design lab that we did in the agricultural project for Director of Farmer Finance. And then user testing was the last one you guys have heard the most about. Oops, sorry. Which was just when you actually know your product or your service or something or your strategy, then you just get details of the micro detail. Do you get more clicks with red or green? You know, that's the kind of like lower level design that happens. So these are like general methods. I want to go through 6 with you really quickly of actual activities that you can design quickly with your users, with your stakeholders, with your team to elicit your own biases and your users' understanding of certain processes, or even how your stakeholders start thinking about their own incentives if they're funding you, or if they're actually providing some of those services. So ecosystem mapping. You take a really big piece of paper and you have these cards with players in the system, and you tell someone to go and map them on the relevance or importance to you. So that is going to be, for example, this one here with farming. You say, hey, you're in the center with your family. Tell me how they all relate to one another. There you have your trainers, you have your service, your financial service provider, your savings account, your tools. How do they all work together? Then once you have the map, you start mapping. Now you start saying, now where's the money flow? Where's the information flow? How do you actually train and teach other people? So that's kind of what happens with an ecosystem map. With financial portfolios, you start saying across a certain amount of time, like if you want to know around when the highest or lowest amount of money is flowing, is it consistent, how much volatility and risk, and then the emotional layer that's upon that, right? So how did you learn to save in that interesting way? Who taught you to do that? Or when do you find yourself the most confident about your financial status, right? It might be upcoming money, or it might be you have money right now. How do they actually relate to their savings? And let's see, solution card sort. You might have a hypothesis that there are 4 or 5 different opportunities you want to go in, and you prototype. Here's a service. This is what it looks like. Here's some actual ways that it varies. The different players. Is it a retail source? Is it online? Is it an actual person that comes to your house? You show all those different kinds of solutions, and then you can say rank them. Number 1, 2, 3. Which one works for you? Which one would be the biggest burden? So then you start asking the questions to where it gets interesting of their personal understanding and reference frame. It's basically just getting inside their heads. These last ones are basically a journey map, walking me through one I did with pregnancy of a woman to understand post and prenatal health care, and who along that journey is getting them into an institutionalized birth, and who is actually keeping them in the home to give delivery, and basically figuring out, is there a way we can incentivize them to get to an institutionalized birth? Who are we actually leaving out in terms of trust? So taking them along that journey, you can start mapping all the things that happen to that person, and you can, after that, chart the emotions as you go through. Start designing for that. Game night and home tours are probably my 2 most favorite ones that I think SNCC was brand new to you, right? So game night is you literally make a board game and a point system with people in a room. I think the best one I've ever done is Social Sentiments Project, where I basically said, here's a prompt, you flip a card and you get a certain amount of points for it. And you say, well, tell me about the last person in the room, you invite a whole bunch of friends, that you said something really nice. When was it, how do you do it, and then how often do you do that? Then the person gets the opportunity to say, no, you did not do that, it didn't go down that way, you never actually do it that way, and then you start saying, okay, how does this relationship actually play out? You get to rectify the bias that they have, that's a personal bias that they're telling you in that interview. And then of course you take the points away and it gets very exciting when you move across the board game. But you hardly have to do anything, you just have to watch them play this interesting game. And of course that project was for a card maker and trying to figure out how to make a digital strategy. So that was the context there. Home tours. So the home tours is interesting because we sent them a little 10 questions beforehand. Okay, we say, tell me, or like mark an object in your house that makes you the most annoyed. I'm trying to give you a concrete example here. But basically, we're having them tag different objects in the room. Which is the most expensive item that you've purchased that gives you a lot of joy looking at it? And or maybe it's like, tell me about an object in your room that someone who taught you a life lesson about savings, or like about how to think about your own security in your house, or something like that. Basically, so that you understand how their emotional connections are to the things in their homes and the people that are in their lives. So that was a lot at you right now in terms of methods and activities. We have an activity for you guys to do, and a case study, but I wanted to stop here because I know that was a really rapid way of firing content at you. Yeah.
So my question is really about, I think these are really interesting activities and ideas about how to get at what people are thinking.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of contexts that you go into in the developing world where someone sees you coming and decides what answer you want before you've even asked the question.
It's a huge.
And so I'm really curious about, do you have methods for getting around that? Well, you're asking me this question, you must want to know X, Y, and Z, and not getting the canned answer, either individually or in groups, because I definitely work with groups, and everybody in the room will tell you, yes, we all have toilets in our houses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was just in your community, and nobody has toilets.
Yeah.
So this is not a factual statement.
Yeah.
So how do you get around that?
Right. I mean, part of it is that intercept piece is like, I usually contact one person that's separate from my host organization or my company, and say, you're a local, you know the community, can you just show me for a day or two around and talk to some folks, separate from the actual agenda and rigorous schedule we have. And then being opportunistic and again curious, right, and adapting to the observations you see, and being skeptical, right, and then knowing how to follow that. Truth is, like, data is shoddy and it's hard for us to get the right way, but you have to try all different tactics. So maybe there is the scenarios, right? So if you saw no toilet in that case, maybe you can draw a little concept that is a solution to that you saw, and they're like, oh no, I have a toilet. But they don't, and you know that, but what would you do if you reacted to this one, or if your neighbor reacted to this one, right? So it's actually projecting their own examples onto someone else or something else. Yeah, and then so that prototype, that actual thing, is what they're critiquing, not themselves, and telling you the truth, right? Yeah. Great question. Yeah.
So, kind of related to that issue, how do you, I'm just curious about sort of the intercepts concept.
Yeah.
So, going to a country, kind of trying to engage someone who has, no reason to trust you, and maybe a language barrier.
Right.
How do you kind of approach people without any sort of like introduction?
Yeah, I mean, honesty is usually the best rule. I mean, I have someone with me to translate. I just say, I'm interested in learning about your X, Y, or Z, or whatever your topic is about, and just ask for the time. And
So
you are,
yeah,
I do usually have to look.
And have you ever found any challenges with that? Like, do you usually screen a community and make sure they accept them when you're coming, or have you ever like cold called communities?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it depends on your topic, like, and how sensitive it is and how deep into that community it is, right? So I would say a local who actually has those connections, who can say, have some, would you be open to talking to them, is one way. But if it's around like digital literacy, like go to an internet cafe and just strike up a conversation, right? Yeah.
Just take one more.
We should probably take one and we'll move into it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Can I just ask about generalizability and
Okay.
the role that intuition plays when you're hearing answers, and kind of what point do you know that you have something that actually, is usable to, summarize or at least kind of use as a rough guideline for a population that you're working with?
Right, that's great. Typically, I'm in the field for about 2 weeks at minimum, and I'll probably iterate concepts or hypotheses maybe 3, 4, 5 times within the first week develop brand new prototypes and test it again. So I don't really need to know how certain I am until I take that thing out again. The thing that survives is going to be the idea and the concept that works. So what I want you guys to take away is work quick and dirty. And then once you do the quick and dirty work, then you can start doing the rigorous analysis and monitoring of the solution that you're actually more confident in. Instead of collecting all the data, then develop the solution. There's nothing wrong with being exploratory and creative during an earlier stage. That's a great question. Let's move forward, and Sneha and I are going to walk around as we do an activity together. Keep these in mind because we're going to give you a challenge.
All right, it's 4:50. Everyone needs to like really get their energy levels up now. All right, so we are going to try and give you a problem statement, and then we are going to do something which you guys are almost all used to very well, which is pick on you very randomly. So the problem statement is that 2 out of 3 South Africans aged 18 to 28 are unemployed. We are a youth employment accelerator with a mandate to build skills and increase job readiness of urban youth in South Africa. More than 50% of our graduate students belong to households largely dependent on government grants as the only source of income. Thus, getting permanent work and a decent salary is imperative to lift these young South Africans out of poverty cycle. Second prompt is that research has shown that young South Africans who can get and keep a job for 12 months have an 85% chance of staying employed for a lifetime. The question for you guys in the next 15-20 minutes is that what can we do to enable young South Africans to keep a job for 12 months or more? I know everyone is going to want to jump into these questions, but before we do that, at least you want to take some notes. Do it. We want to just get your thoughts and be very open, be exploratory, and like throw things out. Who do you think we should first meet to understand this challenge? Generative. We can filter out later. Go ahead.
Employers?
Yeah, employers. Go ahead.
The 18-year-olds.
The 18-year-old.
Teachers?
Teachers.
Their families?
Families. Yeah.
People that once got a job got unemployed after that?
Yep. Good fine.
The government?
The government. Yeah.
Community centers or religious centers.
Community centers and religious centers. Yeah.
The 85% of people who do have jobs now?
The statistic was that they stay in job for 85% longer, but yes, people who have their jobs. Sure. Anyone else?
Any nuance to these? Like what type of teachers, what kinds of families?
Probably the main people who are most at risk as well.
Okay. Most at risk? Okay.
At risk?
Yeah. That's the segmentation of.
Okay, excellent. Good first brainstorm.
Distributing these things.
Okay, well, yeah, we're going to start distributing these things. So after thinking about this challenge a little bit, we identified a few of the places where we're actually going to go do research. Okay, and what we're going to do is in teams, pick one, and then figure out what your research plan, what you would actually do, what activities. Can I get one of those, Mika?
Yeah, sure. And actually, if you can, yeah, exactly. If you can pair up, that would be really helpful.
Okay,
So, yeah, one way. Pair up.
What we're going to do really quick, we're testing these out, is let's look at these really quick. We have one, which is one day on a junior college campus. What are you going to do for that full day? Okay, so you get to talk to a 30-year-old man who just got his first full-time job, and he says he can meet you at his office on Friday after his first day at work. Okay? There is one national chain restaurant and 2 big box retailers that are interested in youth unemployment issues. You get 1 hour with their CEOs. Okay? There's a coffee shop nearby that many of the students hang out after school. You get there at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Okay? Professors in economics at University of Cape Town have agreed to meet you on campus for coffee. You get to meet a household with a grandmother taking care of 4 grandkids ages 7, 12, 14, and 26. They are willing to meet with you after dinner. Okay? You have 10 high school seniors during the first homeroom period for 50 minutes class in the morning before a break. You have 2 hours with a 26-year-old woman in her apartment. She's never held a job longer than 8 months. Okay, so here's some real people that you're going to talk to, and it'll be interesting to say what activities, so basically if you look at your worksheet, you say, what do you want to learn from this person? What is the most meaningful thing that you need to get from this person? And you can't just ask the question, why did you keep your job, right? So figure out how you're going to figure that out. And then also logistics. What are you going to bring? Who's going to be there? What do you have to prepare for? And then research stimulus. Draw out what you've got to bring. Like, is it a worksheet like this that they're going to respond to? Is it an actual object they need to discuss? Now, before we get into it, I know you guys are already pairing up. I want to give you one example. So I'll take one that is like, here, there's a coffee shop nearby that many students hang out at. And so we show up, and I'm going to say, how about we bring a laptop, and we go to Craigslist, and we basically talk about the best jobs and the worst jobs on Craigslist, and then we actually chart them out to make a career path. That's an activity. And so what do I have to do? I want to learn, what do they see their idealized career path was? And maybe one of the questions I ask them, the way I phrase it is, tell me the worst job you see on this page right now. How much money would they have to pay to do it? Okay? So you start thinking about how much money they actually would love to aspire for without actually asking them, how much money do you want to make? Right?
So just one thing, you can pick one of the prompts.
Yes, pick one
and
then develop an activity for it. And then obviously logistics, you gotta bring a laptop, you gotta find a partner to take notes, and then draw what you're gonna draw and write down all the steps you're gonna do. Okay, any questions before we start? Break up into teams of 2 or 3, or however you guys have already segmented. We're pretty easy. We'll be around. Raise your hand if you call us. Call us. Snigdha and Elise if you have questions, okay? Oh my God! Oh, sorry guys.
not get distracted. Great question. Great question. Great question.
think right. I think it's easy, and then happy answers. So I think happy stories are so I would say
Think about it. Head on. Don't really have I'll buy that. It's a conversation. Those are practicalities. You might get it out there, but that's how we operate in the yeah, exactly. I would just like have a family together, like maybe our when you actually around, like if they like or maybe that's a video of the class and kind of happening. Long time, one time, figure out motivations Alright guys, you guys have 1 minute. Start drawing on the other side of the paper and then I'm going to again start speaking randomly and you guys have to tell me what you guys have come up with. Alright? 1 minute, 1 minute! Alright guys, we're running short on time, so we'll have to cut this here. And it's absolutely fine if your ideas are half-baked, because that's what this process is all about right now. Half-baked ideas, innovation, creativity, everything, feel free to share. And if you do not raise your hand voluntarily, I will pick on people. So, who wants to share? Why not? Yeah, the group at the back, yes.
Okay, share. So we're just going to talk this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we picked the situation where we go talk to the 10 students. And so after figuring out what we want to learn, like about their backgrounds, about their career plans, their social activities, their social circles, how their family dynamic is like, we thought about how will we uncover it. So we thought everything from a paper questionnaire to bringing a voice recorder with us, to notes, to a phone in case we want to capture a discussion that's going on in part of the room. For example, we thought we would break the kids out into groups to do icebreakers after giving out a questionnaire to them. So, and then quickly moving on to the prototype and trying to draw this out, how it would look. We would meet with our team, whether or not it's 2 of us or a little consultant group, maybe at 7 a.m. and we make sure that we have our incentives like donuts or coffee or little treats for answering questions. We'd have our paper and our surveys and our voice recorders and materials, maybe 7:30, go talk to the teacher, see how the classroom is set up, see how the school system is set up, and what the stakeholders that are working with these students are doing to promote career searches and to promote their success. And then we'll have that last hour from 8 to 9 with 15 minutes with the students and do this survey, the icebreaker, talk to them and empathize with them and connect with them and kind of hear where they are in life and what they're searching for.
Great. And I guess 3 really big things was that you guys thought about being there and talking to other stakeholders involved in a school, so like talking to teachers while you were talking to kids. Also, the whole donut and coffee thing, it sounds really like you're bribing them, but that's how things work. Like that's how things work in real life. And you have to be mindful of that. And I love the fact that you guys thought about recorders and stuff, because that actually added an element to capture things which you guys weren't maybe listening to and stuff. So if it is allowed in situations, ask them. Do not do that without their permission, but record. Great. Anyone else from here? Yeah, go ahead.
We think that there is sample of the grandmother and her core children. What we learned is the sustainable long-term countermeasure for the employment problem. So we have the sample of the grandmother, and we presume the parents of the kids working. So that's why the grandmother is taking care of them.
Okay.
And then, so we will meet them after dinner and casually. So from grandmother, we can learn the history of the country's employment situation. So we can understand if the situation is going better or worse. And from the 26-year-old son.
I was just wondering to think about time. What is the thing that you never thought you would think of to do in a research? What's something that surprised you in that plan?
Go to their home.
Oh, right, go to your home. Excellent. That's great. That's great. How about something? I just trying to be mindful of time. I wanted to. Maybe we'll use that as a prompt.
Yeah.
What's something that surprised you that you thought of in your plan?
We thought of one thing was watching TV with 26-year-old women to find out what her favorite characters were, why they're her favorite TV characters.
You paid to go watch television with someone. Awesome. What else? That's awesome. That's great.
So what was surprising was a lot of our ideas already meant doing a lot of background research, because you had options that you want to perhaps put out, have like visual cues or an app that they could choose from. So that requires a lot of preparation.
Yeah. Tons of prep before. Yeah.
You picked the example of the grandmother as well, and we thought we'd play like a game of life or Monopoly with them and see how everyone reacts to like being a lawyer or like making money in the game.
Right. Role playing of some sort.
I think once you the first requirement really, like the second you step in, you just know everything. It's like so many things about that person, like pictures that she has, family, her interests, like the books, and then if you bring like some awesome coffee or food, then you don't even like question. The answer just come right out.
Bribe them. That's the way to go. No. But I guess the end question is, did you guys have fun doing this?
Yeah.
You think you would do this if you guys had a problem in your social enterprise setup? Yeah? The key is you're always going to have a limited number of people that you can reach out through this. So that's always going to happen. But then you need to think about, on top of this, how do you think about the larger picture? So this is a tool for you to get to the larger picture, get nuances around your understanding of the problem. But then this is like any other tool, this is not the end all and be all, and you can build on this. So I will probably end on that. We'll be here.
So on behalf of the SECON2015 team, we'd like to give this
co-chairs, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out this year. We had planned this great reception to close tomorrow, and
since we know that the snow is starting to accumulate, we wanted to be end at this time today, so for everyone's safety. But just means a lot to us that you came out. Hope you had a really great day, and hope to have you here again next year.